good. Now we all know. I think we already did know each other, but now we know each other better. Starting out with the Fast Mind Club, so also known as ADHD, right? So I brought this article I wrote a while ago, like a year ago, July, and it has actually kind of a funny story to it, and it's about ADHD Explained, the core 4 traits. And the part that's funny is my husband Tommy is like the grading police. So if I have a stack of papers and he knows that I'll kind of leave and get like drawn into a YouTube or like inspired for who knows what, and then there the papers are and I'm inspired and reel me back in. And also Psychology Today, if you don't know, they have, I think it's 90 days. If you want to continue to write for them, you have to have an article by 90 days. You can write more and get paid. I don't do any of that, I just do my one. And then they send you this message that's, you're on the naughty list. Like if you miss the deadline, you're on the naughty list. And I didn't want to be on the naughty list, so I kicked out what I called an emergency article. I'm like, what can I write fast so I'm back on the grid? Because they kind of bump you off. They don't completely lose you, but you can't be seen and stuff. So I'm like, okay, hyper focus. And so I came out with this one, and go figure, because it's actually, my emergency article actually had the most hits out of anything I've ever written. So to start out, let's ask you, because I know what, typical, what we would say symptoms, and I changed how I worded that a while ago. So I just did that on purpose, like, but it's your regular people, and we're going to get into that shortly. Regular people have ADHD, and obviously the diversity piece is important because, the color of your skin, or whether you wear a yarmulke or not, or how many tattoos you have, doesn't have a thing to do with ADHD. But it's also, one of my students 2 years ago, I think it was autism we were talking about, but he changed it. Like, we were doing symptoms of these different things, and he said, how about instead of that, how about we say, what does it look like? Because it makes it more real. It's not you're talking out of the DSM-5 or 6 or whatever it is. You're, labels belong in soup cans kind of thing. We could talk about what does it look like in my life with my friends and my sisters and brothers or whatever, right? So in here right now, what do we think the fast minders look like? I'll get to why I don't like that word, the other word, in a second. Like, think about it. What we would call symptoms. What do you think if it was student or partner of yours, or friend or whatever, sibling? What does it look like? It can be stereotypical. It doesn't mean you believe that. It just means what's out there.
Distracted.
Yep, distracted. What else?
Jumps from topic to topic.
Yes. We know what we're doing. Yes. What else?
Like 500 tabs open on the screen.
Yeah, totally.
On the computer.
That's pretty accurate. Anybody else? So distracted, yes. How about some like stereotypical ones? They can be negative, because there are a lot of negative ones out there. It doesn't mean you believe it. It's just like out there.
Can't sit still.
Can't sit still, right? Another word for that is what?
Hyper.
Hyper, yeah.
Answer the pants.
Answer the pants, okay.
Maybe some risk taking.
Yeah, totally. Reckless behavior, things like that, sure, especially teenagers, but also as adults. We'll get into that too. I mostly focus on adults, like, for the obvious reasons. There's been a lot of focus on kids, so it's not really, it's a little different. How it presents is a little different. So the four key points that I have here is that, because we know the symptoms, about the hyperness, we know about all that, but these are really what it's about. Okay, so ADHDers are not motivated by importance, rewards, and consequences like neurotypicals are. And that's how the world runs, right? As far as motivation. Think of, faculty, I'm thinking of like midterm grades and, book adoptions and, same thing in staff world with different deadlines, and we operate that way. And the ADHDers are really not motivated by that the same way as neurotypicals are. ADHDers are also, we operate on high-octane, interest-based nervous systems. So which is why when we get locked in, big good things happen, which we'll get to later as a gift as far as the hyperfocus. Big things get invented, and play scripts get written, and all kinds of things like that. It also has a downside, because with adulting, there's a lot of shame around this particular one, actually, because people would have said, if you're going to wait around to be interested, be an adult, grow up, that sort of thing. So it has a downside too. And then the third one is Intense emotionality, which is basically, we actually in our house, because there's two of us, myself and our youngest, we'll say stop volcanoing, you know, kind of, because it's so fast, like we're over it in 2 seconds, we don't remember usually, but we can get stuck in that because that's an executive functioning thing. And then lastly, the hyperactivity is an outward expression. If somebody has the H, not everybody has the H, because there's the impulsive type, and there's the attention type, and then there's the combined type. So somebody doesn't have to have the H, but what a lot of neurotypicals don't realize, if you think we're annoying you, be in our heads, because what shows on the outside is a fraction of what we're dealing with on the inside. Picture restless leg syndrome, but it's your whole body all day, every day. Like we're just tap dancing inside our skin, and it takes an enormous amount of control to not do that around other people. It's really, really challenging. And even at the fabulous 57 years old that I am, it still takes more effort on some days than not. It's definitely better than being 15, but it's still present. Okay, so here, and I actually did another talk about this entirely, because one day I just was flooded with inspiration. That's how we sort of live, you know, on inspiration and passion based. I just got really irritated about the misnomer thing. And of course, this is the stereotype, right? Little boy, little white boy, you know, way back in the day, a lot of adults didn't get diagnosed, especially women, because girls didn't have it back in, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s even. You know, and it also looked different and sometimes. So I did well, not the whole talk, but part of it was ADHD stands for what?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
Right, excellent. So I basically can't stand that, except for the attention is okay, because that's what it's about. But deficit, anybody who actually has it, students have it, partner has it, somebody has it. If ask that person if there's any deficit of attention, they'll look at you like you have 4 heads. Like, are you kidding me? That's why I had the bees on the first slide. It's a bee's nest every day. So it's not that we have a deficit of attention, it's that we're paying attention to everything. And since it's virtually impossible for us to pay attention to 2 things at once, that's just true. People think that you can multitask, and that's a myth. It's just a quick shift of attention. So when that beehive thing is a good example, because we're just shifting all day long. Just So there's definitely no deficit, there's a surplus. And then the H is hyperactivity, right? Which isn't fun to hear that as an 8-year-old, but how do you think it feels like to hear that when you're in your 50s? Like, you picture hyperactive as annoying, right? Talking too much, like just fidgeting and just being annoying. In adult world, they might not say anything, but you feel it, kind of. So swapping that out to high energy is way better. And I picture somebody bouncing in yoga pants, just really positive and upbeat, and, you know, just got the good energy going on. And then disorder is a word this is one of the dreams I have, and I have many. I definitely have several at the top. If we could eradicate the word disorder out of every language, any language across the globe, I would be elated. Because when we think about the word disorder, what comes to mind? Let's throw out some words.
Well, it already starts with dis,
Right.
which is negative.
Negative.
connotation, yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
Disability.
Disability.
Yeah.
A lot of these
Deficit.
words, yes, deficit.
Yeah, it's just the negative connotation, all those things.
Not normal.
Not normal,
Not okay.
not okay, very good. And also flawed, right? Defective. A lot of the shame words start with D. Defective, deficient, that was really good. And so if it's not, you can fill in the blank, it doesn't have to be the fast minders, but with whatever disorder, bipolar disorder, anything that's labeled anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, if it's not enough to already deal with that, now you gotta say that I'm defective, right? So it's kind of like this. So I just want to just hit the delete button. And also, and it doesn't mean we're not, sometimes students say, yeah, but I like to know what I have. You can know what you have without calling it that. You know, example, fast mind. You know, we know without saying the disorder part. And then also, typically, if you fill in the blank with other things as well, no matter if we have some difference in wiring that's maybe got a ton of challenges and things that are hard for us all the way up through, there's usually a gift in there someplace where we shine. The we is, again, you can fill in the blank with other things. there's a gift in there that where we shine in a way that's different from neurotypicals. And for the ADHD Fast Mind Club, it's definitely creativity. We innovate, we create, we innovate, we invent. And thankfully, businesses and I actually have a really good Laurel story if I remember. Businesses are now capitalizing on that. You have to be nuts not to hire somebody with the fast mind. If the job involves, especially here, we've got a stamp on innovation, right? Because, and there's some downsides, because we could be at a very boring, not that there would ever be a boring faculty senate meeting, or staff welfare meeting, right? But here's the thing: is the fast minder is going to sit, nod, smile. Everybody thinks she's paying attention. Guess what? Her mind went out the door, around the block, and probably wrote 3 chapters of that novel that's been in her mind. She got nothing from the meeting, but she's got it all here, and then off she goes and writes the book or does whatever. So that also takes patience. And my really good Laurel story, since it's us, because if I were out speaking somewhere else, I probably wouldn't say it, but that was one of her biggest strengths, I would say. And that's here, I think here in general we have that going on. But with Minecraft, actually, I know you all know about that class. Way back when, she gave me like a weekend. And so here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this, that, like positive psychology splash, but hands-on, come up with a syllabus. And she said like sexy title. She didn't say sexy, I said sexy, but title. And then I was like hyper-focused, went home and just was so excited. She gave me a nice little stipend, but honest to goodness, without it, I wouldn't have, I'm not gonna say that, but I was so all over it. And she always embraced that, which is like better than, we have tolerance here, right? Which is better than not being tolerant. We have acceptance, better than that. And then when we can actually embrace and encourage, we're sailing. Because then it's not just you're putting up with me or you get me. You actually know that I have something to bring to the table that's different than other people, and you're running with it. And I think that's where we all want to be with whatever we're talking about, difference, right? Okay, so attention, surplus, high energy, gift. That's all catching on.
So the G is gift?
Gift.
Oh.
And I will correct, actually the class I taught, I teach this in cognitive, but there's a class that's got blended into Cornerstone, which is no longer with us, which is applied. So I used to teach autism there, and I would correct students, just politely. You can choose to use that word wherever you want to, disorder, but in here, we're gonna, or difference works out, and they would catch themselves and say, oh, I meant, Asperger's as a gift or autism as a gift, and it's just such a better way to go, in my opinion. And now what's great is when I have a lot of fast minders in one class, they now refer to themselves that way, which is really cool. It's like you got somewhere, even if it's just 2 people. I feel like my work is done almost. Like it made this much of a difference, because for self-esteem it's so huge. Okay, so stereotypical myths about, how about myths about how we acquire it? I just gotta watch my time. What?
Vaccines.
Yeah, and that's even more true. I have to go like that just so I can see that. Okay. Vaccines is good, Susan. Even more with autism, I think they're talking about that. What else? How do we get ADHD? I mean, stereotypically, I know you don't believe this, but
Because our parents didn't.
bad parents. Bad parents. Your crappy parents are why you have ADHD. Now, crappy parenting, so we're just going to say I don't want to judge parents doing the best they can. We'll say ineffective or not as effective parenting can definitely exacerbate it, though. But it doesn't cause it. Any other ones?
Maybe diet.
Yeah. Get off the Snicker bars, right? And so here's the
Video
thing.
games.
Video games, yeah. That's a whole different topic, too, because I've had parents say things. Oh, he doesn't or she doesn't. They don't have ADHD. They can stay with a video game. Well, of course they can. It's filling every single thing that's the shiniest object ever. Of course they can sit there for 8 hours. Not the same. So yeah, it's not bad parenting. It's not sugar. And actually, I bring, I bring candy to like everything I do. I say, here's the thing, wonderful ones. Don't listen to people. Candy's good for you. It's good for you unless you're diabetic, not so much. But prefrontal cortex, about 15 minutes before a test or like going on a date that you want to like be focused, pound a Snicker bar. It can also be an apple, but so these well-meaning parents.
Can I quote you on that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like the
Pound
best
is,
quote.
yes.
Pound a Snicker bar.
Just pound a Snicker bar before
Grab
you go to focus.
grab an apple. But how did you?
I mean,
word that?
well, the body itself, like nutritionally, doesn't really know the difference between fructose, sucrose, galactose, blah, 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 blah. But the Snicker bar and you watch them just be excited. And I bring them whenever they have a paper due or a presentation, or it's like happy day, you know, positive. And they just like jump in there and say, yeah, eat up, don't listen to people. Just because your prefrontal cortex wants it. And those of us with a dopamine deprived brain really want it. So well-meaning parents, and I'm not saying don't monitor it. You can't let your 7-year-old, you know, jump into like a 5-scoop hot fudge sundae and have it be fine. But to moderate it, you know, keep it, like, give them some here and there. Just be mindful of portion size and things like that. Okay, so, okay, we did that. So it's genetic. That's what it is. It's genetic. It's also not a big surprise. I had my doctor tell me this, and she's brilliant. I really, really like her a lot. She's since retired, but my OB, and she also has alcoholic parents like I do. I have 2 alcoholic parents. So it's not surprising when ADHD shows itself in a child, you know, that there's addiction in the family, because it's a lot of the same system going on with the dopamine receptors and it does not mean that ADHDer is doomed for addiction, although you want to really be careful because we're predisposed anyway. So even if you didn't have the ADHD piece, you're still predisposed. I have 2 of them. So I'm really, you know, just really, really careful about it. And I think the knowledge is power, right? Like just to know what your genes are gives you a leg up versus, you know, students ask me all the time, well, my aunt's bipolar, man, you're not doomed by that. Epigenetics, we can turn that around a lot with different, you know, mindfulness things, not necessarily because genetics are powerful, but you're not doomed. We know that the genetics can morph into something else when we have really, really good lifestyle habits. No guarantee, but we know we have we can do a lot. Okay, so the core 4, okay, so the motivation piece, this is where I'm going to go to my notes just because I'm a little under the weather. Okay, so the majority of neurotypicals are again, motivated by importance, rewards, and consequences, right? So consequences, we tend to think 7-year-olds, but really consequences, if you don't get midterm grades in or you're on the naughty list, right? Right? It's just little things like that, but there can be a lot of shame with that for the, you know, the fast mind person. So all that stuff just holds true for neurotypicals more. For us, we really don't care. Not that we don't care at all, because we're professionals and we're adults, but we don't care as much. It's hard to light a fire under us that way. We are most motivated by high-octane passion, like coming up with a Minecraft class, for example, or other just creative things. It doesn't have to be that level. It can be coming up with a new assignment or coming up with, I actually borrowed it from one side. I can take no credit for this. Social hours for students instead of office hours, and then doing something with that. It doesn't have to be like this level of here, but that creative stuff where you see students loving it. Also just in the classroom, because education involves a ton of creativity, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Also creatives over here doing all kinds of things, and but we get really excited when we can kind of run with it. Okay, rewards too. Most of the rewards we're talking about, like in higher ed or even out in the corporate world, it's paychecks, right? Very extrinsic. Now, most of us need money, so that doesn't mean that's bad, but it also doesn't mutually exclude intrinsic motivation. But the fast minder is 99.99999% motivated from the inside out. So when we know that with our students too, it helps us to navigate a little and try to shift. And it's not saying that we take on the whole responsibility, because it's also their responsibility. We'll get to that also. But as educators and also staff working with students doing different things, when we have the knowledge, we can pivot a little bit, change our dance, you know what I mean? And have it be sort of, I'm on the anti-shame campaign, be a little bit more proactive if we can, and rather than kind of sinking, because there's already a lot of shame involved with trying to adult anyway. And then the consequences. Okay, so, I feel like I want to jump in here. I'm watching the clock. So let's think about, we know with kids, I don't want to waste time on that, because we know consequences. They get in a fight, think stereotypically, right? Didn't do their homework for weeks, all those consequences for 8-year-olds, and they take away their recess, which makes me crazy, because but they all need it, but if the neurodivergent can't even, like, you know, it's like a reset. So this is like the worst consequence ever, but let's just leave that one alone. Consequences out in adult world. Think of, not even here, think of it about at home. What are some things that take incredible executive functioning as a grown-up?
Household budgeting.
That's the number one for me. Household budgeting. Like what else? But that's broad, so that's good. What else is like bullets under there? That's money, right? So what else do we have to do as a grown up with money?
Grocery shopping.
Budget and actually figure out what the grocery shopping, right? I usually leave my list in the produce section. I don't even do lists anymore. Come on in, Joe. What's going on? And so, yes, okay. So list. I've tried it. It lands in the romaine lettuce every time. So like I don't do it anymore because it's like it's not working. So we end up having for dinner whatever's happened in the grocery store that day. Okay, good. So also with that, that's a good start, Christina. Totally. Budgeting, the grocery list, checking account. I can't tell you how many. You know those little starter checks you get, like my Jeep was like full of those for the longest time because it'd be like starting over new. You know, it's just so hard to keep track of that stuff. It's gotten better with electronic. That really helps. What else? What about jobs?
Just keeping all of your tasks being on time and making sure you fulfill your obligations.
Yeah, keeping up with the task. Very good, Susan. Keeping up with the task. There's a gamut of responsibilities which would be different wherever we go, right? And keeping track of all those deadlines. Just keeping the job. Because an interest-based nervous system, guess what? When we get bored, guess what we don't want to do anymore? That job. And so there's a lot of, thankfully, teaching changes, and the well-being role I have is different all the time, and so my cup runneth over. But that's really, it needs to be kind of fast. And I looked it up once recently, and the top 2 jobs for adult with ADHD were teaching and being like a chef. And it makes sense because it's, you know, sitting behind a desk. No offense to that, I'm just saying for me, that wouldn't, I couldn't even do it. Like I mean like all day, and we need everybody, so I'm not in any way looking, you know, down my nose or anything. I just know that I couldn't do it. I wouldn't last a day. If I had to be like 8 to 5 sitting doing numbers, like kill me dead. Like I couldn't do it. But thank goodness other people can because they keep us together. Okay, and then, okay, so that's about the motivations. Remember, there's a lot of shame around that because the adulting thing is hard, yet we know we have to. So the interest-based nervous system thing, so when it works out well, remember that's a double-edged sword because we get the impulse. We are also like Cinderella the night of. So there's a window. So we get really, really excited, and my husband Tommy would say, like, this, the book phase, the documentary phase, lots of projects, you know. And when we're all lit up and on fire with it, it's great. We can literally have the hyper focus down. We feel like one like with the universe just happening. I've written a lot of articles that way. People had to wait like 3 hours for dinner, but I was like, don't bother mom, you know what I mean? So, and you look at Whoopi Goldberg, Leonardo, it's hard to diagnose dead people, but we're pretty sure with the inventing and innovating. Plus, if any of you have had the good fortune to be at his museum, have any of you been there in Rome? It's the coolest thing. It's very small. It's not, maybe it's like maybe like 3 times this classroom size. It's not very big, but if you didn't know that about him, you'd know pretty fast. He has all these ended all over the place. The flying machine, this, that, and they're not done. Over and over and over. One of my favorites here. God, I love him. Merrill Hemingway, there's so many. But going with the impulse. So impulse can be bad or good because obviously we can impulse shop. We can, you know, lots of things involving impulse don't go so well, right? That same thing that goes south with somebody else and us, because it's definitely like with money, that's what comes to my mind because it's kind of the easiest example. You know, to just spend whatever without any kind of thought to what's next because you're here. But that's also what invents things and gets, you know, books written, and so it's really a double-edged sword. I actually did talk about that one because I was so passionate about it. I wrote for the consequences. The fast minds are not too concerned with scarcity talk or mindset. So it's all kinds of consequences like, we're like, okay, thank you. Doesn't mean so much. Okay, interest-based nervous system. Intense emotionality. This is one thing, and when I was listening to Tom Brown in Boston, I really listened. God, he's amazing. Russell Barkley, if you look out there, I don't know, but he's good with the knowledge base, but he's honestly kind of negative. And I sat right next to Tom Brown and his son, and we talked a lot afterwards, and He's actually currently doing research on midlife women because with ADHD, because they go and they get their strategies put together, and the hormones, estrogen just tanks, cortisol goes up and stresses everybody out, and it all goes to heck in a handbasket. So he's doing that right now. He's a wonderful man, really wonderful man. Get my train back. Okay, so he's written a lot about this. This was even left out of the DSM till recently. So it's just all the basics about the impulse control, the attention, also the procrastination, which was with me is the only one I don't have out of all of it. And I chalk that up to having 2 alcoholic parents because I kind of learned how to get on my stuff. But the tornadoing thing, it's rad, it's so fast. And so our youngest and I will actually use the word volcano. I know volcano's a verb, but we use it like that. Stop volcanoing, ah! And you're just getting tense, but at least when you know that in the family, and it doesn't give excuses, we're not saying that. But the awareness of, if you can, letting somebody have their space when they're kind of in that, and it's not the responsibility, it's not on the neurotypical, it's just an awareness. If you can, it's just helpful. So on the student kind of scenario, they're probably not gonna have a volcano moment like that, but they might have a mild volcano moment of frustration. Like, I can't believe this, I've been working on this for weeks, and I thought I brought it, I left it in my dorm, and then they are stuck in that, and they cannot circle out of that without some guidance, because they're like doing like a gerbil, like on a wheel. And that might be what it might look like more here, during the day, being not professional, but being, I guess, sort of on their way to professional, right? But they're in it, and it's flying around in their heads. Okay, and then I think, make sure I didn't leave anything out. Consequences. The H. Slide 5. We did that. Oh, the passion was electric. I think I said that. Like Cinderella. Bah, 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 bah. Okay, and then we turned into pumpkins. I just rattled off a bunch of people. Simone Biles. Michael Phelps has done a ton of work out there with empathy, not just with ADHD, which he is, and people with the fast mind. Also, those with autism, a lot will say, I am autistic, not I have autism. And the fast minders will often say, I am ADHD, because you really can't pull it out of your whole, hard drive. It's not like you can just set it down like a suitcase, really. Days that are less fast, but you can't really depart with it. Leonardo, Whoopi, Robin, Jim Carrey, David Neilman, CEO of JetBlue. We create, innovate, and invent. So the fast minders are perfect for this place. Definitely. Intense emotionality. Okay, the H, I'm gonna watch the time here. The H, we're talking about what was called hyperactive, but we swapped it out for high energy because it's a more positive word, especially for adults. I don't think an 8-year-old likes that. It's negative. You're so hyper, you're talking a lot. Maybe sometimes you come in to colleagues with closed doors because here she comes and she's going to talk too much in the morning or things like that. Even if that's not what's actually happening, sometimes my head has gone there, not really here as much, a little bit, but because you're so used to it as a kid. It's like, okay, they don't want to have too much, And our youngest says, was she and I, she says, Mom, we're kind of like a really decadent chocolate cake. You really can't wait for that first bite. By the time you're at the 5th, it's too much. You're done, right? But it does wear on you sometimes, even if you're just guessing, okay, it must be they just thought I was too much today. And the H, remember we were saying earlier that, let's repeat because for Joe also, that if we're somewhat fast moving and annoying on the outside, you can't possibly imagine how fast moving we are on the inside.
Do you mind interruptions? Do you want us to wait till the end?
No. You can interrupt.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask a kind of a question or give an example, but our youngest daughter used to come home from school and she would have really deep pressure points on her finger and on her legs. And we finally figured out that she was wrapping her feet around the edge of her chair at school to hold herself tight, and she was pressing on her pencil so hard, I think, just to control that. And I'm wondering if we see more of that with females, where maybe we're moving away from it a little bit, but that whole like boys will be boys and
Oh, I
he's
can't
just
stand that.
rambunctious.
Yeah.
And I think she was learning at a very early age that, you know, she was supposed to fit into this very small box and not be too much.
Right.
And I'm just curious about whether or not there's studies out there about how it affects girls through
Totally.
their lifetime versus, you know, are boys given a little bit more leeway?
Oh, definitely. So even now in 2022, Rebecca, it's different, you know, and you're right. And it's, you know, obviously, I mean, it's a good thing to bust out of gender jail, you know, in general, but especially with ADHD thing, it took decades just for girls to get on the map. I'll tell you, I was at a conference, not here, but when it was a Sheraton over there, and Stephanie Sarkis, she's very famous. She was great. There was a woman behind me, it's maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, 70 something. And she said, this finally makes sense to me. Because if you go back to somebody in their 70s, there's no way, and that was 8 years ago, nobody was gonna, she had an epiphany in that moment. Obviously something pulled her to be there, but she said, it's all making sense now. And she kind of shared with the audience, wow. And so it is different. It is different for girls and women, presenting girls and women, definitely. No question, it's getting better. Also, girls went misdiagnosed for so long because of that. They would eventually label them with the attention type, but if you have the H and the impulsivity, you know, that's for boys, not you. You can't be in the principal office. Hate to tell you. But you definitely can. H-ness inside, okay. And this is another thing. It's important not to relaxation shame people. Because, Tommy, my husband, is better now, but he's not anymore, but he used to say, why can't you just sit on the couch and watch a movie? And I'm like, maybe because that's not how I relax there, Chief. You know? You know, I relax running, skiing, Tai Chi, motion. That doesn't, and I don't go to the movies because it drives me insane with the sensory stuff and people chewing their popcorn. I see Joe's nodding. I'm just like, shut up. I can't stand it. Crinkle, 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 and you're talking. So here's the thing, if you have to explain the movie to somebody, they shouldn't be there right now. You know what I mean? Wait till it's on DVD, talk about it in your living room. Because we're buying the ticket, I don't want to hear you. And so it's just, I can't go to the movies. Like, it's just so not enjoyable for me just because of all the noise. There's all the little noises that it's not even fun for me. You know, popcorn, So yeah. So I relax by moving. Okay, we're almost there. And we talked about this, the gift of creativity. We tend to score very, very highly on divergent thinking tests, very, very highly, which is obviously the think outside the box stuff, which since problem solving is a big part of creativity, we're also really good problem solvers. Because we don't look at things, it's like the functional fixedness, I'm sure you all know what that is. We look at functional fixedness, like we'll look at a hammer or a chair or whatever, and that's for sitting, that's it. The person in the Fast Mind Club can look at something, be like, let's say it's a rain boot, you lost the other one, that'd be a great planter. But something with Viney that'll cover it and put it on the front. Like so we're really, really good problem solvers and seeing outside the bun or box, more so in general than neurotypicals. Doesn't mean they can't do it too. We just have like a thing. We just, like I told you with the boring meetings, we don't have, our neurons are not blocking the other stimuli like they do for neurotypicals. It's kind of like if anybody's a football fan, you know, you block for the quarterback while he or she or they gets to the goal. Well, it's kind of like that happens for neurotypicals, like the kind of, you know, put that away for later kind of thing. You know, after this we can talk about that after the meeting's over, and then whereas the fast minder just runs with it. There's nobody blocking. Like, out we go, out the door, around the block, wrote the script. Not that we didn't want to miss the meeting, but that's what happens. Okay. And it has a window too, so that's why there's a lot of, like Leonardo's museum, there are lots of unopened projects.